Hello, and a very warm welcome to this session of ESL Listening Practice. I'm so happy you've decided to join us today.
We're really glad you're here.
If you're listening to this, chances are you are somewhere on your English learning journey. Maybe you're studying for a huge exam, something that could decide your university place or, your visa.
Or maybe you're just looking to get better at communication for your job or for travel.
Whatever the reason, we're happy you're here. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that I think is going to resonate with almost every single person listening.
Oh, I think so. It's something that comes up constantly.
It does. In our classrooms, in emails we get from students, it's this sinking, heavy feeling that English exams, IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge, you name it, feel incredibly, frustratingly unfair.
And that's where we want to start, right at the beginning. I want to validate that emotion immediately. If you're sitting there right now thinking, this exam is unfair or this test doesn't actually measure my English, I am here to tell you, you are absolutely right.
Wow, okay.
You're not imagining it. You're not just complaining because it's hard. You have identified a fundamental truth about these tests. They aren't a perfect reflection of the real world.
That is such a huge relief to hear, honestly. I think so many students feel that if they fail or they don't get the score they need, it's a reflection of their personal worth.
They think, my English is bad, so I must not be smart enough.
Exactly. But what we're going to talk about today is the idea that maybe your English is actually fine, maybe it's even great, but your approach to the game of the exam is what needs work.
Right. We're not going to talk about grammar rules today.
No, we're not going to teach you 10 new idioms to try and impress an examiner. Today is all about mindset. It's about understanding the system.
We have to shift the perspective entirely. Most people approach an exam like it's a casual conversation. They think, I'll just go in and show them I can speak English.
But it's not a conversation, is it?
It is not a conversation. It's a performance. And it's a performance with very specific, very rigid rules. Today is about exposing those rules.
So what's the plan?
Well, we're going to look at the difference between what we'll call real English and exam English. We're also going to explore why sometimes a lower level student can actually beat a higher level student on these tests.
That's a big one. That drives people crazy.
It does. And finally, we'll give you a roadmap for how to prepare differently. We want to move you from feeling like a victim of the system to being a master of it.
I love that. Master of the system. That sounds so much more empowering than just struggling through a textbook and feeling helpless.
It is.
So let's start with that core feeling, that frustration. I've talked to so many learners, and they say things like, I use English every day at work. I have colleagues from the UK, from the US. We joke, we write emails, we have meetings.
They're functioning.
Yeah.
They're living their lives in English.
Perfectly. But then they take an IELTS exam, and they get a 6.0 or a 6.5, and they need a 7.5, and it's heartbreaking for them. They feel like the test is lying.
It is heartbreaking, and it's also incredibly confusing because in their minds, they are fluent. And in so many ways, they are. They can handle their daily lives in English without any problem.
So where's the disconnect?
Here's the problem. The exam is an artificial construct. It's a manufactured situation. It's designed to be stressful, to be confusing, and to put you under a specific type of pressure that you almost never experience in the real world.
Okay, can you break that down? What does that pressure look like?
Well, when you're at work, your focus is on the message. You're thinking, I need to get this project done, or I need to clarify this email. Your goal is communication.
Right. The outcome.
The outcome. When you're in the exam, the focus is entirely different. It's on your performance. It's on the specific words you choose, your grammar, your timing. The message itself is secondary.
So when you say it's an artificial construct, what does that actually mean for the person sitting in that chair? I mean, it feels real enough when you're sweating and the clock is ticking and your heart is pounding.
Oh, it feels physically real. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the conditions are, well, they're fake. Think about it like a game of football versus, say, juggling a ball by yourself.
Okay.
In a real game of football, things are messy. You react to other players, the ball bounces funny, the goal is just to get the ball in the net however you can.
It's chaotic, but it has a clear purpose.
Exactly. An exam is more like a juggling competition. You have to follow a specific choreography, a set routine, while people watch you and judge your technique.
That's a great analogy. So the anger students feel is because they're trying to play football in a juggling competition.
That's it. And once you accept that the exam is a game, a specific type of game with its own scoring rules, you can stop getting angry at it. You can start learning how to win.
You can't win a game if you don't know the rules, or if you refuse to play by them because you think they're stupid.
The rules might be stupid. That's okay to think. But they are the rules. If you want that certificate, you have to play the game.
That is the aha moment right there. It's not a test of your soul or your intelligence. It's a game. And any game can be won if you have a strategy.
That's the key.
So let's dig into this difference then. We keep saying real life versus exam life. I really want to break this down because I think this is where the mismatch happens for so many students. Let's talk about flexibility. In the real world, communication is it's so flexible, isn't it?
It's forgiving. I think that's the best word for it. Real life communication is forgiving.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, let's imagine you and I are having a coffee. I'm telling you a story about my weekend, and I get stuck. I stumble. Maybe I forget the word for umbrella.
Right. Happens to everyone, even in their native language.
All the time. In real life, I can just say, oh, you know that thing? The thing that keeps the rain off you,
Yeah.
and you nod, you understand immediately, and we just keep talking.
Yeah.
The conversation doesn't stop.
Or I could even help you. I could say, you mean an umbrella.
Exactly. Or if I say something confusing, I can just stop and say, wait, that came out wrong. Let me say that again. I can correct myself. I can backtrack. There's no penalty.
Right. Or I can interrupt you and ask, sorry, did you mean Saturday or Sunday? And that's totally normal. In fact, that negotiation of meaning is what makes a conversation good. It shows we're both listening and engaged.
Yes. In real life, you have all these tools to fix communication breakdowns. You can repeat yourself. You can ask for clarification. You can take a long pause to sip your coffee and just think about your answer. Nobody judges you for taking 5 seconds to think.
But now let's look at the exam. The exam takes away all of those tools.
It strips them all away. You generally can't ask the examiner, so what do you think? You can't really ask them to rephrase a question more than once without it feeling awkward or maybe even losing you marks, depending on the test.
And most importantly, you cannot take that long pause.
That's the killer.
That silence in an exam is terrifying. In a coffee shop, silence is just thinking, it's comfortable. In an exam, silence sounds like you don't know the answer. It sounds like a lack of fluency.
Precisely. In the exam, you have to speak on command. It doesn't matter if the topic is boring. It doesn't matter if you've never in your life thought about the history of mirrors or the impact of space travel on agriculture.
You have to have an opinion, and you have to have it now.
Immediately. And you have to write under that same intense pressure. In real life, if you write an important email, you can draft it, go get a sandwich, come back, read it again, fix it, and then send it.
In the exam, the clock is your boss, and it's a very strict boss.
A very strict boss. And then there's the listening. You listen only once. There is no rewind button in an exam. You can't turn to the audio and say, sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, that listening part is huge. If I can't do that in the exam, I'm essentially operating with one hand tied behind my back. It feels unfair.
And that is exactly why we say it's unfair. It strips away all the natural safety nets of communication. It fundamentally changes the definition of what you're doing.
So let's summarize that. Real life is
communication. The goal is connection, understanding.
And exams are.
Exams are performance under time pressure. The goal is demonstration, showing what you can do in a very limited, very specific way.
Those are two completely different skills.
Completely different.
I really like the analogy you mentioned before about jogging versus sprinting. I think it paints such a clear picture. Could you walk us through that comparison?
Sure. Think of your real-life English like going for a casual jog. When you go for a jog, you set your own pace. If your shoelace comes untied, what do?
You stop and tie it.
Stop and tie it. If you get tired, you walk for a bit. If you see a friend, you might stop and chat for 5 minutes. The goal is just to finish the run, feel good, be healthy.
Right, it's flexible.
Now, imagine the Olympic 100-meter sprint. That is the exam.
Okay.
When that starting gun goes off, you have to run, full speed. You cannot stop to tie your shoe. If you stumble even slightly, the race is over for you. You can't slow down to catch your breath. It requires a perfect, explosive run from the very first second.
And the problem is that most students show up to the Olympic sprint wearing their comfortable jogging clothes, expecting to be able to stop for a water break and a chat.
That is exactly it. They try to communicate naturally. They try to be interesting or funny, or they try to find the absolute perfect, nuanced truth of the answer.
When the test doesn't care about any of that.
No. The test demands a performance. It demands that you keep moving forward no matter what. And this is why even very strong speakers fail. They treat the sprint like a jog.
Wow.
They meander. They think, oh, I can explain this really complex nuance, and then suddenly their time is up. They haven't even finished the task.
This leads us to something really fascinating and honestly a bit controversial. It's something you see all the time. Students who are seemingly worse at English, their grammar isn't perfect, their vocabulary is more basic, sometimes get higher scores than students who are clearly more advanced. And this drives the advanced students absolutely crazy. How is this possible? How can someone with less English beat me?
It's the ultimate paradox of standardized testing, and it proves our point perfectly. Exams test strategy more than they test pure language ability.
So what's actually being tested then, beyond the obvious?
Well, yes, grammar and vocabulary are on the rubric. They're there. But hidden underneath those criteria are other, arguably more important, competencies.
Like what?
Like stress control. Can you keep calm when you're nervous? Time management. Can you actually finish the essay in the time given? Structure. Do you know exactly how to organize your thoughts clearly and quickly? And decision-making.
Decision-making is an interesting one. What do you mean by that in the context of an English test?
It means choosing the path of least resistance every single time. Let's say you're writing an essay. You have a really complex, brilliant idea about the geopolitical implications of climate change.
Okay, sounds impressive.
It does. But you aren't 100% sure how to say geopolitical implications correctly in English. Maybe you're not sure about the spelling or the preposition that follows. You're at a crossroads.
And the decision is?
The decision is, do I try to say this complex thing and risk making a total mess of the sentence? Or do I choose a simpler, slightly less impressive idea like climate change is bad for governments, which I know I can write perfectly?
And the strategic student chooses the simple path.
Every time. The strategic student chooses the simple, safe path. The advanced, non-strategic student tries for the complex path, makes a grammar error, gets stuck, wastes 5 minutes trying to fix it, and starts to panic.
So the worst student wins because they played it safe.
They won because they played the game according to the rules. Let's look at a hypothetical scenario. This makes it really clear. We have two students. Let's call them C1 Claudia and B2 Ben.
Okay, C1 and B2 referring to the language levels.
Exactly. Claudia is the natural. She's C1, maybe even C2. She watches movies without subtitles, reads novels in English for fun, but she has never looked at the exam format. She just walks in super confident.
And Ben?
Ben is the strategist. His English is good, solid B2. Definitely not as fluent or natural as Claudia's, but Ben has spent the last 2 months studying nothing but the exam format. He knows it inside and out.
Okay, so they both get a question. Let's say it's a speaking part 2 question, the one where you get a topic and have to speak for 2 minutes. Let's say the topic is, describe a time you helped someone. What happens?
Okay. Claudia starts talking. She's confident. She remembers a really complicated story about a time she helped a friend move house, but there was a huge problem with the truck, and it was raining, and they were late.
A very real human story.
A very real story.
Yeah.
But she gets caught up in the details. She's trying to explain exactly why the truck broke down. She realizes she doesn't know the word for carburetor or alternator.
She pauses.
She pauses. She says, the engine part. She loses her flow. She looks at the examiner, hoping for some kind of reaction, some help.
And the examiner's face is just a blank wall.
A blank wall. Claudia gets nervous. Her confidence starts to shake. So she starts speaking faster to make up for lost time. And then the timer cuts her off before she even gets to the end of her story. She walks out of the room thinking, I completely messed that up.
Oh, that's painful to even imagine. Okay, and what about B2 Ben?
Ben has a template. He's practiced this 100 times. He knows he needs a clear introduction, 1 or 2 main points with examples, and a conclusion. He hears the topic, describe a time you helped someone. And he chooses the simplest story he can think of.
Which is?
I helped my grandmother carry her groceries.
Yeah.
It's not exciting. It's not dramatic. But it's easy to tell.
So he starts.
He starts. He uses simple, clear sentences. He uses the linking words he practiced. First, I went to the store with her. Then, I noticed the bags were very heavy. As a result, I decided to carry them for her. In conclusion, she was very happy, and it made me feel good.
He sounds like a textbook.
He does. But he's ticking all the examiner's boxes. He keeps an eye on the imaginary clock in his head. He finishes his simple story at exactly 1 minute and 55 seconds. He didn't say anything profound. He didn't use poetic language.
But he fulfilled every single requirement of the task. He was clear, he was structured, and he was on time.
And Ben gets the higher score.
Wow, that is incredibly frustrating for Claudia. It feels deeply unfair, but I can absolutely see why the system rewards Ben. He communicated clearly within the given constraints.
That's the perfect way to put it. The exam rewards exam skills. Claudia had better real-life English, but Ben had better packaging. And in a standardized test, the packaging, the structure, the timing, the clarity is at least half the grade.
So, if the game is rigged towards strategy, what are most of us doing wrong in our preparation? I feel like the default reaction to failing a test is, would you go buy a bigger book? I failed, so I must need to memorize the entire dictionary and every grammar rule ever written.
That is the preparation trap. It is the single most common mistake I see. Students fail, and they immediately assume the problem is a lack of content knowledge. They think, I need more phrasal verbs. I need to finally master the third conditional.
But that's not the answer.
Look, getting better at English is the long-term goal. Of course it is. We all want that. But passing this specific test right now is a short-term goal, and they are two very different projects.
Stop studying English sounds like terrible advice for an English podcast, but I think I know where you're going with this. You mean stop studying the language in a vacuum?
Correct. Stop studying English as a subject and start studying the exam as a system. You need to shift your focus from content to context.
Content to context, what's the difference?
Content is vocabulary lists and grammar rules. Context is understanding the task types intimately. For example, in a reading test, do you know the precise difference between a false answer and a not given answer?
Oh, that is the classic nightmare question. True, false, or not given. It trips everyone up.
And it trips people up because they use their real-world logic instead of the exam's logic. In real life, if information is not given, we might assume it's false or make an educated guess.
Right.
In the exam, not given means the text literally 100% does not say it. There is no room for interpretation. Cool. If you haven't drilled that specific rigid logic, no amount of vocabulary will save you from that question.
You also have to know the scoring criteria, right? How the examiner actually gives you points.
Yes, this is huge. Did you know that in many writing exams, simply using paragraphs correctly is a specific percentage of your score? You could write the most beautiful essay, but if it's one giant block of text, you will automatically lose those points.
That's an easy fix, but you only know it if you study the test itself.
Exactly, or knowing when to stop.
That's a great point. I think a lot of us have a tendency to ramble, especially when we're nervous. We think if we just keep writing or talking, eventually we'll say something smart.
And in an exam, quantity does not equal quality. In fact, writing too much is dangerous.
Why dangerous?
Two reasons. First, the more you write, the more chances you give yourself to make a grammar mistake. Second, the more you write, the less time you have to go back and check your work. You need to know what enough looks like.
So if the task asks for 250 words, writing 400 is not extra credit.
It's a liability. You're wasting precious energy and time that you need for other sections. You don't need to know everything about the topic. You just need enough vocabulary to survive that specific question.
Survive the question. I like that. It's like a survival mode, not a creative writing class. So, okay, we need to change what we study, but we also need to change how we practice. We talked earlier about stress. The exam is a pressure cooker. How do we prepare for that feeling? Because I can study strategy all day in my quiet, comfortable bedroom, but the moment I walk into that exam center, my brain just shuts down.
And there's a biological reason for that. It's the neuroscience of stress. When we feel stressed or threatened, our amygdala, some people call it the lizard brain, takes over. It initiates a fight or flight response.
And what does that do to our language ability?
It's terrible for it. The parts of our brain that are responsible for complex language and higher order thinking literally get less blood flow. They become less active. We become, for all intents and purposes, dumber when we're panicked.
That is a biological fact.
It is. So if all your practice happens in a relaxed, calm state, you're training your brain for an environment you won't be in. You're preparing for a friendly chat, but you're about to enter a high-stress performance.
It's like training for a boxing match by doing yoga. Yoga's great, but it doesn't prepare you for getting punched in the face.
That is a very vivid image, but yes, that's it exactly.
Yeah.
You need to spar. You need to simulate the stress of the match. This means your preparation must include training for pressure, not perfection.
So what's the number one tool for that?
A timer.
The timer is your boss.
The timer is your boss. You should never, ever practice a writing task or a reading task without a timer running. Even if you're just writing one practice paragraph, set the timer for 5 minutes. When that timer goes off, you put the pen down, period.
That sounds really uncomfortable.
It is. At first, you will hate it. but it forces your brain to work faster. It forces you to make those quick, good enough decisions we talked about earlier. You have to get used to that feeling of adrenaline, that spike of panic, so it becomes normal.
What about for speaking? How can you simulate that pressure when you're just studying alone?
You practice speaking without prep. Most students, when they practice alone, they look at a question, they think about it for a minute, maybe they write down some notes, and then they start speaking.
Which is not what happens in the test.
It's too easy. It's not realistic. You need to grab a random question, use an app, a website, a list of questions, whatever, and you answer it immediately. 3, 2, 1, go. Record yourself on your phone.
And then listen back to it.
Yes, and it will be painful. You will hear yourself stumble. You will hear all the ums and ahs. That's good. You need to hear that. You need to learn how to recover when your mind goes completely blank.
That recovery is so key, the move-on mentality. I think this is where perfectionism really kills people in exams. You make a little mistake, you hear yourself make it, and you just freeze. You want to go back and fix it.
And that urge to fix it, that perfectionist urge, is fatal in a timed test. In an exam, flow is crucial. If you say, I go to the store, I went to the store, that's okay once.
But if you do it every sentence,
your fluency score drops like a rock. You have to train yourself to accept the small mistake. You dropped an article. Who cares? Keep moving. You used the wrong preposition. Ignore it and move on. Correcting yourself constantly costs time, and it breaks the rhythm for the listener. The examiner wants to hear a stream of English, not a series of stops and starts.
it's all about momentum. It's like riding a bike. If you stop the bike to worry about a wobble, you fall over. If you just keep pedaling, you stay upright.
Exactly. And this leads to a really important concept: confidence versus control. People think confidence comes from knowing you'll be perfect. I'll be confident when I know every word in the dictionary.
Which is impossible.
It's impossible. You'll never know every word. Real, useful confidence in an exam doesn't come from a fantasy of perfection. It comes from control.
Control over what?
It comes from knowing, okay, I have a structure for this essay type. I know how to manage my time in the reading section. I know what to do if I start to panic.
So it's control over the process, not necessarily the content. You can't control what questions they ask you. They might ask you about nuclear physics or knitting.
Exactly. You can't control the questions.
But you can control how you answer.
Yes. You can control your template. You can control your timing. You can control your breathing. That is where your confidence should be anchored, in the things you can control.
Let's talk for a minute about the people on the other side of the desk, the examiners. I think we often view them as these terrifying, robotic gatekeepers who are just looking for our mistakes.
The enemy.
The enemy. But you're suggesting we should actually try to think like them.
We have to. We need to humanize the examiner. And we need to realize something very, very important about them.
What's that?
They want an easy life.
Don't we all?
Seriously. Imagine being an examiner. You have listened to 30 students speak about their hometown today. You are tired. You are probably hungry. You are bored. Most of the students are mumbling or rambling or giving confusing answers.
So if I come in and give a clear, simple, structured answer, I'm actually making their day better.
You are the hero of their day. They don't want to have to hunt for your main point in a long, confusing story. They don't want to try and decipher your complex, messy sentences to figure out if you actually answered the question.
They want you to make it obvious.
They want you to hand them the answer on a silver platter. Here's my main point. Here's my first example. Here's my conclusion. Boom. They can tick the box on their score sheet, give you the points you deserve, and move on to the next person. It's a win-win.
Those simplifying answers isn't just about saving your own brain power. It's about being kind to the examiner.
Clear is kind. That is a great rule for exams. Don't try to be a philosopher. Don't try to solve the world's problems in a 250-word essay. Give the simplest, clearest answer that directly addresses the prompt.
So if they ask, is technology a good or a bad thing?
Don't write a deep thesis on the nuance of AI ethics and its impact on society. Just write, in my view, technology has both positive and negative aspects. On the one hand, it connects people. On the other hand, it can make us lazy. Simple, structured, done.
And this also helps with saving energy, which you mentioned. Exams are marathons, not sprints. Well, they're a series of sprints, I guess.
Right. If you burn 100% of your mental energy on the first section, usually the listening or reading, you're going to be completely brain dead by the time you get to the writing or speaking at the end.
Pacing is everything.
You cannot sprint the whole marathon. You have to know where to spend your energy. Don't agonize over one really difficult multiple choice question for 5 minutes. It's not worth it. Take your best guess and move on. Save that brain power for the writing task where you actually have to generate complex language from scratch.
And what about staying calm when things inevitably go wrong? Because they will go wrong. You will miss a listening question. The audio will play, you'll be distracted for a second, and you'll realize you have no idea what they just said. That moment of panic can completely ruin the rest of the test if you let it.
You have to have a reset button in your mind. You have to be able to say to yourself, okay, I missed question 5. Question 5 is gone now. It is dead to me.
That's a strong way to put it.
You have to be ruthless. If you sit there thinking about question 5, you are guaranteed to miss questions 6, 7, and 8 as well. You have to cut your losses, reset, take a deep breath, focus only on what is happening right now. That emotional resilience is a huge part of the strategy.
It really does seem like once you peel back the curtain, the exam stops being this big, scary, mysterious monster. It becomes, well, predictable.
It is incredibly predictable. That's the whole point of a standardized test. They are, by definition, standardized. They have to be. They follow patterns. They reuse the same question types over and over. They use the same kinds of tricks to distract you in the reading section.
So once you study the system,
you start to see the matrix code. You stop looking at the content. Oh no, a text about ancient Rome. And you start looking at the structure. This is a multiple choice question with a classic distractor. This is a standard opinion essay format.
it becomes a checklist.
It becomes a checklist. And checklists are not scary. They are manageable.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've gone from feeling like helpless victims of this unfair system to realizing that the unfairness is actually just a predictable set of rules that we can learn and even exploit.
That's the goal. Let's maybe summarize the main takeaways for everyone.
Good idea.
First, and most importantly, exams are unfair. Accept it. Don't fight it. They are artificial performances, not real-life conversations.
Second, strategy often beats raw intelligence. The B2 strategists can beat the C1 natural because they manage time, stress, and structure better.
Third, stop just studying English and start studying the exam. Learn the task types, learn the scoring criteria, learn the tricks, know the system.
And fourth, train for pressure, not perfection. You have to use a timer. You have to practice speaking instantly. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's your training ground.
And finally, flip the script. Use the system to your advantage. Be clear, be simple, and play the game the examiner wants you to play. Make their job easy.
That's a fantastic summary.
English exams are not fair. That's true. But, and this is the most important thing to remember, they are learnable.
It's a skill.
It's a skill, just like driving a car or cooking a meal. If you prepare for it like it's real life, flexible, forgiving, messy, you will feel lost and frustrated. But if you prepare for it like it's a system, rigid, timed, structured, you will feel confident and in control.
I love that. Don't prepare to be perfect. Prepare to play the exam game well. It takes all the pressure off. You don't have to be a perfect English speaker. You just have to be a good game player.
Precisely.
Before we go, we always like to leave our listeners with something to think about. A little bit of homework for your brain, let's say.
Okay, here is my question for you to take away today. If the exam is a game, are you playing to win or are you just playing not to lose?
Ooh, that's a good one. What's the difference?
Think about it. Playing not to lose means you're defensive.
Yeah.
You're fearful. You're hesitant. You're just trying to avoid mistakes. Playing to win means you are aggressive with your strategy. You're in control. You are attacking the questions with a clear plan. Which kind of player are you right now? And which one do you want to be?
That is a very powerful distinction, playing to win. Thank you to everyone for listening. Keep practicing, stay strategic, and we will see you next time on ESL Listening Practice.
Goodbye, everyone.